accessing the soul's gifts. How can it be done? The soul's wisdom. If you recognize the existence of the soul, even if it's just one of abstract intellectual curiosity at this point, or you have more of an inner connected sense of the soul that you move with and feel and intuit in your living life, then you most likely adopt or can comprehend the notion of reincarnation. And when we consider this, there is this logical process, thinking-wise, of, okay, I've lived all these lives, and supposedly, I would have learned things from them, and maybe I can see how some of my gifts or proclivities might come from earlier experiences, but how can I really access more of the soul's wisdom and gifts and intelligence? Is there a specific process for that? Well, we're going to talk about that today, so keep watching. This is quite a nice conversation to follow after our recent look at Leo, because Leo has to do with the divine self and the recognition of the true self, and the power that comes with that, the actualized Leonian individual becoming this master of the actualizing of the will. And yes, I'm like one with my environment. I can bring this thing that I need from the environment and pull that out and do all of this master creativity. And in the same way, whether or not we're a Leonian individual, it's a reflection of what is capable when we're connected to the soul and when we deepen our merging with the Godhead in that way. And really, the answer to this question of how do we access the soul's gifts, we've kind of covered it already. It's always sort of saying the same thing but coming back around. But once again, with following Leo, the key with the connecting to the soul begins with that sacrifice. So there are certain things out there that will say, yes, you can connect to the soul this way, open your ajna and blah, 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 connect to the Akashic records and all of this. But really there is only one way to connect to the soul's gifts, and that is to surrender to the soul. And to surrender to the soul is to die to the small self. And that is terrifying, and that is difficult, and that it goes against so much of what the identification with the lower self wants to do. It wants to preserve its small, contracted self. It wants to hold on to its desires and attachments and its selfish things. But it's not how it goes. The soul puts the personality through these tests of reliability and maturity and right values. It puts that knocks on the door and says, why do you really want to pursue this thing? Do you really want this? Would you really be willing to give that up for this? It's these sorts of things and tests that we go through when we're aligning with the spiritual life. And the deeper that we're able to sacrifice, the more that we choose to opt for the spiritual life, no matter what the consequences, whether that means you have to move to a different city, or leave the family, or all of these scary things that we can sometimes be called to do when we make that surrender to the soul, and then we get all this inpouring intelligence that comes with that surrender. But it's the willingness to accept the consequences of who you really are. And that's not who you think you are from the point of view of identification with the body and with the personality, which is only going to exist for a few decades, a handful of decades, and then on it goes. On goes the soul. So there is the idea of power and potency and divine wisdom that from the point of view of the personality, it goes, ooh, yes, I like those things so I can further my agenda. But as we spoke about in Leo, not my will, but thine be done. So the short and simple answer of how do you connect to the soul's wisdom and all your past life stuff or whatever comes with that, the ability to manifest that comes with the soul, etc., it is directly related to how much you're willing to die to that which you are not, and kill off the old. God is a consuming fire. I didn't say that in Leo, but that's the following piece. The Bible says this: God is a consuming fire. So to let go into the soul is to be burnt. But in that which is burnt, we come to know who we are truly, And with power comes responsibility. That is a natural law. This is why, from an exoteric point of view, people will say, like, power corrupts. It's not power that corrupts. Power and force corrupts the corruptible individual who hasn't made the right sacrifices to wield power. Once again, this all comes back to following the Leonian discussion of the ruler and ruling, the ruling principle. So if the soul is to rule our lives and all of the power that comes with that, we need to be willing to give up that which isn't true. So you can't access those potencies any other way. Some people naturally have more force and they can be responding to some esoteric influences for sure, and they still are from personality identification, and these kinds of people are able to be quite successful in manifesting their desires and dreams and do all of this, but it can be either very selfish and materialistic and otherwise pretty useless in terms of its contribution to humanity, and ultimately at the end of the day unsatisfying because it's false, right? It's the Maya. Or it can actually be dangerous where you have a healer type person where there's a responding to some of the potent forces coming from other planets and the movement of the esoteric rulers, but there hasn't been the biggest sacrifice. But really, it's as simple as we need to be willing to make that sacrifice. And that the power is revealed, or the wisdom is revealed across time in our willingness to continue humbling ourselves and stepping into the sacrifice, stepping into what is demanded of us when we take full responsibility for living the truth, taking that responsibility of living the consequences of opting for truth, of opting for love, no matter what that demands of us, no matter the pains that we have to go through or losses that we have to go through. And so in this way, there is no quick fix or meditative technique, or you could just say meditating on the soul and prayer and asking to be humbled and asking with sincerity, and sincerity is the key word. The soul knows when the personality is sincere. I'm willing to give up my personal desires and my safeties, and I'm ready to accept the responsibility of living the soul. So it's really a question, not of technique, not of spending money, not of past life regression therapies. It's really a question of how much courage do you have? And how much fear are you willing to face in yourself as you take the step into that yes to life? And how much are you willing to let yourself love?